Have you ever heard of the term alternations of generations? Ever? Okay. If you have, it's good. If you haven't, then also it's good. For those who haven't heard it for the first time, those who are hearing it for the first time, they also have a benefit. Those who are not, they are also having a benefit, because we are going to discuss this topic now. What is alternation of generations? In alternation of generations, before you understand what is hidden in this huge word, what we have to see is there are few more terms that you need to understand. That is sporophyte and gametophyte. Here again, those of you who know it, that's good. Those of who don't know it, that's also good, because they'll understand it in a better way, and those who know it, they will also understand it in a better way. These are the two things in which there would be alternation. So these are generation phases of the plant. Why I am saying it? Because the name suggests it. Phyte refers to plant. So this has something to do with gametes, and this has something to do with spores. As you can see, these are the two stages of plant life where the plant alternates. Okay, we have discussed that there are certain types of plants in which we see that cryptogamy plants, that is the seedless plants, they show alternation of generation. Now coming to what is alternation of generation. The plant body has two types of phases in its life cycle, that is, one is sporophytic and other is gametophytic. Okay, now before understanding this in terms of lower plants, let's take the example of the higher plants. When we talk about sporophyte, the plant body is diploid. Now you understand what is diploid and haploid, I need not to tell you. A diploid organism has two chromosomes for expression of a gene. That means whenever a gene has to be expressed, supposedly the plant has to make light green colored leaves. So it would need two chromosomes for expression of that particular color. It would need the gene for that green expression would need two alleles, then only the expression would be complete. But in case the organism or the particular gene does not need two alleles, instead one allele is enough, then the plant body happens to be haploid, which is represented by N. Now what does this N represent? This N represents the haploid chromosomal content, that is known as genome. You are going to get introduced to this in great depth when you study genetics, but for now you need to understand that if I am saying that the plant body is haploid, that means supposedly the plant needs 26 chromosomes for expression, that is 13 pairs for expression of all its characters. One plant needs that. That means it is 13 into 2, okay, 2 into 13 I would say. What am I writing? 2 multiplied by 13, that is 2n. This n represents the haploid chromosomal content. Now in case of the gametes which are to be formed, gametes do not need these 26 pairs. You know, in sexual reproduction, male gamete carries the half number of chromosomes, female gamete carries half the number of chromosomes. So that part of the plant which is going to give rise to gametes needs to be haploid. Okay, so in this case, in haploid, there would be 13 chromosomes in total, there won't be any pairs. So that case, the plant would be N, 13 itself, it is having 13 chromosomes only. So this is what is about the gametophyte and sporophyte. What you have to remember is, gametophyte would be that part of plant body which on mitosis, remember it, no meiosis I am talking about, because it is already half the number of chromosomes. If it undergoes meiosis, it would become 1/4, which is not possible. Now you get to know mitosis and meiosis in depth, but for now I am just telling you, sporophyte would be that part of the plant body which would give rise to cells, simple cells or the plants, and gametophyte would be that part of the plant body which would give rise to the gametes. That means it needs to have half the number of chromosomes. Now in the case of alternation of generation, we get to see that half of the life cycle of the plant is spent as sporophytic plant and half of it is spent as gametophytic plant. Now what does that mean? If we talk about our let's consider the mango tree. The mango tree that is visible to you is entirely sporophytic. You do not find its gametophytic generation anywhere, because its gametophytic generation is just reduced to 1 or 2 cells. You cannot see cells openly. So those 1 or 2 cells, they lie inside the ovary, alright, inside the ovules, and the male gamete is formed. That simplest organization is that entire plant is sporophytic, it is diploid, complete plant is diploid. Only a few cells inside the plant become haploid and they give rise to the gametes. So the gametophytic generation is totally, in fact almost totally reduced to few cellular stages. In case of alternation of generation, the lower plants, especially cryptogams, what they do is that mostly the plant body is haploid. That means for the expression of their characters, they do not need 2 alleles. The gene would not need 2 alleles. That means the plant body that is visible, as in the case of mango tree, the mango tree that is visible to you, that is diploid, that is not having haploid generation, and whatever haploid generation is present, that is reduced to cellular level. But in case you are having a bryophyte in your hand, let's talk about you are having a liverwort in your hand. For example, you have funaria. Funaria is example of a bryophyte, scientific name it is. For example, you are having a funaria in your hand, that funaria would be haploid. You cannot see its gametophytic generation. That main plant body is haploid. Okay, so we have whether the main plant body is gametophytic or the main plant body is sporophytic. I hope I am able to explain you that sporophytic is diploid generation and gametophytic is haploid generation. Now depending upon the class division, it depends whether the plant body is gametophytic or it is sporophytic. When I say that the cryptogams have haploid plant bodies, their dominant stage is haploid plant bodies, that means the plants would be gametophytic. That means when the gametes are to be formed, no meiosis is required. Why? Because supposedly, I am just going to give you an example. This is some part of the plant. Just I am drawing these leaves just to show that these are plants. This is some part of the plant. This itself, entire plant is N. Alright. And when it has to form sexual gametes, it will not undergo meiosis because it would be reduced to N by 2. Which is not possible. So simply by mitosis, a gamete would be formed, which is also N. You have to remember one thing, that whichever gamete is formed, consider the example of human sperms and ovum, they have half the number of chromosomes, they are going to have N number of chromosomes, never diploid they are going to be. If they become diploid, then there is some sort of problem. So the gamete has to be haploid in any case, and if the gamete has to be haploid, if the plant is diploid, it would undergo meiosis so that the gamete becomes haploid. If the plant is haploid, why does it need to undergo meiosis? Because it is already haploid. So that haploid plant does not undergo meiosis, it undergoes mitosis and forms the gamete. When these gametes, one gamete, supposedly this is male gamete, female gamete, and there is a male gamete that would come and join, and they would form N plus N organization. That means the plant body or the zygote that is being formed, that becomes diploid. Now as the zygote has become diploid, the offspring that would be formed, it would also be diploid, which is not possible, which should not occur. So for making the zygote haploid, now there would be meiotic division. Are you getting my point? That normally if we talk about sexual reproduction in human beings, there is a male, there is a female, and they undergo, both of them, their cells undergo meiosis, both of them are diploid. It undergoes meiosis, haploid gametes are formed, there is formation of zygote, and this zygote develops into embryo, and that embryo develops into a grown offspring. This is what happens. This is what happens, just a casual representation, that there is a female, there is a male, both of them have a diploid composition, as we have a male is having 46 number of chromosomes, so is in the case of females. Both of them there inside their body there is formation of the gametes which takes place because of meiosis. Meiosis reduces the number of chromosomes to half, and when they unite there is restoration of the chromosome number, that is ploidy level, and the offsprings are formed. In this case, the restoration of chromosomal number would take place only if they undergo zygotic meiosis. Okay, so in case of haploid plants, what happens? The plant has haploid cells. Some haploid cells, they undergo mitosis, they undergo differentiation and form the gametes. The gametes, they unite and they form the zygote, and the zygote undergoes meiosis to form the haploid offspring all over again. This is haplontic life cycle. Okay, this is diplontic life cycle. Over here I gave you example of human beings. You can use the example of mango plant as well, because that is also having diplontic life cycle. So we have two terms that come across, diplontic life cycle and haplontic life cycle. Now apart from this, when we talk about alternation of generations, we have haplodiplontic life cycle, which would be shown by bryophytes and pteridophytes. Okay, so now after understanding so much, we come to the term actually alternation of generation, that is present in bryophytes and pteridophytes. Those of you who knew it must be understanding it in greater depth now. Those of you don't know, they can watch the video all over again and understand, because I know this is little bit typical topic, because this is the first topic and we deal with mitosis and meiosis here only. So you can watch mitosis, meiosis and then come to this, or otherwise you can just replay this and watch it all over again. You will understand a few things. Now when we talk about bryophytes and pteridophytes, both of them show haplodiplontic life cycle. That means right now I told you what is haplontic, what is diplontic. They are going to show both haploid and diploid cycle. Now almost everybody shows that. Only difference is that over here the haploid plant body would also be present over here, and the diploid plant body would also be present, which means that whenever you see a bryophyte, you would find the gametophyte as well as the sporophyte would be visible in a bryophyte, which is not possible in other plants. If it is algae, then also it's not possible. If it is some higher plant, then also it is not possible. It is these two classes which have this differences. Now what is in the haplodiplontic cycle? In the haplodiplontic cycle, supposedly there is a zygote formation which takes place, and zygote would always be 2n. This zygote, it develops, it undergoes further divisions. Which divisions? Mitotic divisions. And you know mitosis is important for growth. So this zygote has undergone divisions and formed the, and because it is diploid, it would be the sporophyte which would be formed. Alright. Now this sporophyte would grow, it would undergo meiosis. Okay, there would be formation of gametes. Okay, these gametes would germinate. They would germinate and give rise to gametophyte. Sporophyte, gametophyte gives rise to spores which come in close contact with, not over here, these are not gametes, these are the spores which germinate. Haploid spores which germinate give rise to gametophyte. This gametophyte undergoes meiosis, it forms gametes. These gametes, they unite, that is by the process of fertilization, and zygote is formed. Now see this, what it is all about. A zygote is formed zygote undergoes mitotic division, it gives rise to a sporophytic plant body. That means the plant which is visible is diploid. At the same time, on this diploid plant, there is formation of spores. These spores fall down, they grow. Again, these also spores also undergo mitosis. They grow in size and again a plant body is formed. On this plant body, which is gametophytic, some cells would undergo meiosis and form the gametes. When the gametes are formed, there would be fertilization of gametes giving rise to a zygote, and this entire cycle would keep on going. Now what you see over here is that half of the plant bodies or half of the plant's life cycle is spent in 2n end stage and the rest is spent in 2n stage. So both the sporophytic and the gametophytic generations are walking hand in hand, and there is alternation that is present. This is what is alternation of generations, that for some time of their life cycle they are going to stay as gametophyte, for some time they are going to stay as sporophyte within the same plant. And you can see these both generation or these both the plant bodies with your eyes, because this is also a dominant stage, this is also a dominant stage, not like in the case of Haplontic where the dominant stage was haploid, and not in the case of Diplontic as well where the dominant is again diploid stage. You do not find these gametes, they are not macroscopic, they are microscopic, and they are reduced to 2 or 3 cell stage. Over here the plant body would have multiple cells, it would have fully grown, and this is all about alternation of generation. When I come to understanding the life cycle of Funaria in the topic bryophytes, I hope you will have this fresh in your mind and you will be able to relate what alternation of generations is all about.